Bennett, age 13. Paris wasn't some outcast or angry loner. He was a straight-A student from Texas. Charming, polite, and supposedly gifted. His mom thought he was the one kid she didn't have to worry about. And boy, was she wrong. Because one cold night in 2007, while babysitting his 4-year-old sister, Ella, Paris waited until she fell asleep. Then he grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed her 17 times. When he called 911, he sounded calm, told them exactly what he did, said it was an accident at first, then admitted he wanted to punish his mom because she was a recovering addict who had relapsed once. Paris decided she didn't deserve to raise another child. This wasn't some random moment of rage. He'd planned it, watched violent videos, read up on anatomy, waited until no one else was home. And after it was done, he told police it felt right. In court, he didn't cry, didn't even apologize. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison, the maximum in Texas for a minor. He'll be eligible for parole in 2027. His mom still visits him in prison, says she forgives him, but every visit, she's sitting across from the person who destroyed her life on purpose and doesn't regret it. Ellis Pinsky, age 15. At 15, Ellis Pinsky looked like a quiet honor roll kid, but behind the scenes, he was pulling off a crypto heist worth $24 million and somehow doing it from his bedroom. In 2018, Ellis was approached by an online contact named Harry with an offer: lead a team of hackers in a SIM swapping attack. The target was Michael Turpin, a crypto millionaire with over $100 million in digital assets. Ellis said yes. They bribed an AT&T employee to steal Turpin's phone number, hijacked his accounts, and found a file labeled passwords. Inside were keys to dozens of crypto wallets. In under 2 hours, Ellis and the crew drained $24 million in Bitcoin and walked away like it was just another Tuesday. He spent his cut like a teenage Bond villain, buying designer watches, a 6-figure car, and flexing wads of cash. His friends thought he was just really good at trading, but Turpin didn't let it go. He sued AT&T, hired cyber investigators, and eventually outed Ellis by name in a massive lawsuit. By 2020, Ellis was no longer the mystery hacker. He was Baby Al Capone in every headline. In court, Ellis claimed most of the money was already gone. He returned a few items, pleaded guilty, and avoided prison because of his age. But the judge still ordered him to pay back $22 million. Today, Ellis is studying computer science in college, and unless he figures out how to invent Bitcoin 2.0, he'll be paying that debt off until retirement. Craig Price, age 13. Craig was just a normal-looking kid in Warwick, Rhode Island, playing football, nicknamed Iron Man. His friends thought he was normal, but behind that naive face was actually a monster. At 13, Craig broke into 27-year-old Rebecca Spencer's home one night. He attacked her as she slept, stabbing her 58 times. His method was cold and calculated. He grabbed a butcher knife and struck repeatedly until she was gone. He didn't stop there. 2 years later, he crept into the home of Joan Heaton, a mother of 2. He stabbed her a horrifying 62 times, then turned to her daughters, ages 10 and 8. Their screams filled the house, but Craig didn't stop. He mutilated all 3 of them before walking away. Neighbors were stunned. A local detective said Craig talked about killing like it was some random teen gossip. He showed no remorse. He said he'd get out soon. After all, he was just a juvenile. Public outrage exploded. People barricaded their doors. He should never walk free, they said. Pressure mounted, laws were changed, and this kid, still only 15 at the time of his last murders, was tried as an adult. Craig Price is still in prison today. He's had violent outbursts behind bars, claiming he'll make history when released. Alan Winston Fillian, age 16. When the first 911 call came in, Florida police thought it was real. A guy claimed he was about to commit a violent crime. Then there were loud bangs in the background, sounded like gunshots. Within minutes, 30 armed officers stormed the area, only to find a calm neighborhood and no threat. It kept happening. Different voices, fake emergencies, same result. Cops kicking in doors, families dragged outside. The person behind it all, a 16-year-old from California named Alan Winston Fillian. Alan didn't just swap people for fun, or because it was some sick prank. He actually turned it into a business. For $40, he'd fake a gas leak. For $75, he'd send a SWAT team. He called it Tor Swats and ran it on Telegram like a delivery service for chaos. Over 2 years, Alan made 375-plus swatting calls, hitting homes, schools, churches, even FBI agents and senators. He bragged online about families getting cuffed, searched, and humiliated like it was some kind of twisted scoreboard. But the FBI was watching. They linked his usernames, tracked his chats, and in January 2024, raided his house. Inside, they found everything: the logs, recordings, full evidence of the operation. Allen was arrested and charged with 3 felonies. In court, he looked like any other teenager, but by then, he'd already pulled off one of the worst swatting sprees in U.S. history. Joshua Phillips, age 14. Joshua Phillips looked like the quiet kid who wouldn't hurt a fly, lived in a small Florida neighborhood, had a crush on his neighbor's daughter, and mostly kept to himself. But in November 1998, that image cracked. Literally. His mom was cleaning his room when she noticed something strange. A wet spot under his waterbed. She opened the panel and found the body of 8-year-old Maddie Clifton stuffed inside. Joshua later said it was an accident, that they were play wrestling and he hit her with a baseball bat. But instead of calling for help, he panicked, dragged her inside, and when she moaned from under the bed, he stabbed her 11 times to make her stop. The autopsy showed she'd been alive for hours. Joshua went to school, joked with classmates, even helped search for her while she lay dying in his bedroom. At trial, his defense argued it was fear and confusion, but the jury didn't buy it. This wasn't just a bad decision, it was brutal, deliberate, and terrifying. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. Today, he's still behind bars, and Florida has no plans to let him out. Some crimes don't leave room for second chances, even when the killer's just 14. Jesse Pomeroy, age 14. Back in the 1870s, when kids played marbles and horses pulled carts, something terrifying stepped into the quiet streets of Charleston, Massachusetts. That something was 14-year-old Jesse Pomeroy, nicknamed the Boy Fiend. Jesse wasn't collecting stamps or doing chores. At just 12, he'd already started luring younger boys into empty spots to torture them. We're talking whipping, stabbing, a murderous playground. By 14, that wasn't enough, so he switched to murder. His first known victim was Katie Curran, a 10-year-old girl who disappeared after visiting his family's tailor shop. Her body was hidden in Jesse's basement. There was no hiding or cover-up. Then he killed 4-year-old Horace Millen. The blood on the scene and those gruesome trophies left no doubt that it was Jesse's doing. Authorities caught him quickly. He became the youngest person in Massachusetts history to receive a life sentence. In the 1870s, hanging a teenager seemed too extreme, so he was sent to solitary confinement instead. That wasn't short either. Jesse stayed locked up for 41 years. Enough time to finish high school, college, and see a midlife crisis come and go. Nehemiah Grigo, age 15. In 2013, Nehemiah Grigo was a regular, quiet teen from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Homeschooled, loved music, went to church, but behind the scenes, this kid had a loaded AR-15 and a plan. One night, while the rest of his family was sleeping, Nehemiah walked into his parents' room and shot his mother in the head. Then he waited. When his younger brother came in crying, Nehemiah shot him too. Over the next hour, he killed his 2 younger sisters and then his father as he came home from his night shift. 5 people, all blood relatives, all dead in one night. And it didn't stop there. Nehemiah loaded the family van with guns and ammo, planning to drive to a Walmart and shoot random strangers. He even texted a girl he liked, telling her what he'd done and hinting that he wanted to die in a shootout. Instead, she called the police. When they arrested him, he was calm. Said he'd been thinking about mass murder since he was 11. Showed no signs of panic or regret, just cold. Because of his age, the court fought for years over whether to try him as an adult. He was finally sentenced in 2019 to serve his time as a juvenile until age 21. But before that date hit, the judge changed their mind. Nehemiah Grigo is now serving 3 life sentences plus 7 years. Harold Littleman Jones, age 15. Harold Jones was the kind of kid adults trusted, polite, church-going, a paper boy in 1920s Wales. But behind the boy-next-door act was something much darker. It started when 8-year-old Frida Burnell went missing. She'd gone to buy chicken feed and never came home. Harold, just 15 at the time, was one of the last people to see her. The police searched his house and found Frida's body hidden in the attic, beaten, strangled, dumped like garbage above his family's heads. He went to trial. The town was horrified, but Harold smiled in court. He cried on cue, played the innocent boy, and somehow the jury bought it. He was acquitted. 2 weeks later, he struck again. This time it was 11-year-old Florence Little. He invited her over while his parents were out, lured her upstairs, locked the door, and killed her with a hammer. Same pattern. Beaten, strangled, hidden, except now he wrote a confession and calmly handed it to police. He said he killed Frida too, but wanted to be free long enough to do it again. That was his plan all along. Harold was convicted and sent to prison until he turned 35. When released, he changed his name and vanished into London. Some think he kept killing, others say he lived quietly. Willie Bos, age 13. Willie Bos was born in the early 60s, and by the late 70s, he quickly became the face of teen violence in New York. A 15-year-old who could kill someone and walk free by the time he was shaving. Willie grew up in Harlem, surrounded by abuse, neglect, and violence. His dad was on death row for murder. His grandfather was also a killer. Willie never had a chance. By age 9, he was robbing trains. At 13, he shot someone during a mugging, and at 15, he killed 2 men in separate robberies, both shot point blank in the head. The twist was that under New York law at the time, he couldn't be tried as an adult. So for those 2 murders, he got 5 years in a juvenile facility. 5 years. The public freaked out. Politicians scrambled. And within months, New York passed the Juvenile Offender Act, a law written because of Willie, allowing kids as young as 13 to be tried as adults for violent crimes. They literally rewrote the law around one teenager. But it didn't change Willie. He got out, committed more crimes, and landed back behind bars permanently. Today, he's in solitary confinement and has spent more than 40 years locked up. John Romano, age 16. John Romano didn't fit the profile of a school shooter. He wasn't failing, wasn't bullied, and had no criminal past. But on February 9, 2004, he walked into Columbia High School in New York with a shotgun hidden under a trench coat and a note that read, "Today is the day." He'd been researching Columbine, looked at it like a blueprint. At 16, he'd already written about feeling empty inside and wanting to go out in a blaze of glory. So during the third period, he pulled the fire alarm, took out the shotgun, and started shooting in the hallway. One teacher, Michael Bennett, ran toward the sound. John fired at him point blank and hit him in the leg. He was about to shoot again when the assistant principal tackled him from behind. John dropped the gun and got swarmed. Police later found journals and plans. He didn't have a list of targets, he just wanted to cause fear. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. But the story doesn't end there. Years later, John actually spoke out. He said he regretted everything, said he was suicidal and wanted to be stopped. Today, he helps run a program from behind bars, warning kids about the signs of mental health collapse. Christian Fernandez, age 12. By the time Christian Fernandez was 12, he'd already seen more trauma than most adults. His mom had him at 12 years old. His stepfather beat him so badly that child services got involved multiple times, and Christian himself was showing signs of serious emotional damage. But nothing could prepare anyone for what happened in 2011. While his mom was out, Christian was left alone with his 2-year-old half-brother, David. At some point, the toddler started crying, and Christian snapped. He slammed David's head against a bookshelf and left him unconscious on the floor for hours. Instead of calling 911, his mother waited. She Googled head injuries and then drove David to the hospital too late. The boy died the next day. When police questioned Christian, he admitted to everything. He said he'd hit his brother because he was angry. The autopsy revealed a fractured skull, brain bleeding, and other signs of long-term abuse, likely from Christian, even before this. He was charged with first-degree murder. At just 12 years old, he faced life in prison. After a long legal battle, Christian took a plea deal. He served juvenile time until he turned 19. Today, he's out. No one really knows where. Cosmo the God, Eric Taylor, age 15. Most kids get grounded for staying up too late. Eric Taylor got banned from the internet by the FBI. At just 15, he called himself Cosmo the God and rolled with a hacker crew called UG Nazi. These weren't bored kids messing with homework sites. They took down major websites, leaked personal info, and once hacked Papa John's just because their pizza showed up cold. When the feds caught him in 2012, Cosmo didn't go to jail. Instead, he got a plea deal, 6 years with no internet. If he needed to do schoolwork online, he had to ask permission, and he had to be supervised. advanced. Basically, he was like a toddler with YouTube Kids. That lasted about 3 weeks. Cosmo convinced someone to sneak him a laptop, and instead of watching some TikTok videos, he broke into a Russian black market site selling stolen social security numbers, credit cards, even celebrity credit files. Instead of keeping quiet, Cosmo blackmailed the Russian hackers, and they were so impressed, they gave him VIP access. He used it to leak everything. Every name, every address, every credit report, dumped online for the world to see. He even tipped off TMZ to cover the leaks, pretending the Russians had done it. The FBI traced everything back to his grandma's house in Long Beach. They didn't knock this time. Instead, they kicked in the door with flashbangs and SWAT gear, catching Cosmo mid-hack. You'd think that would end with prison, but it didn't. He got probation again. Today, Cosmo works in cybersecurity, helping companies stay safe from teenagers like 15-year-old him.